Welcome into the best in paranormal programming. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. We have an exciting show today for you folks. We're going to be a little bit all over the board today, but that's a good thing. We've got some interesting topics to talk with our guest today, Nicole Majik. Nicole Majik has a very interesting and extensive background with a bachelor's degree in biology and chemistry. She also has a master's in metaphysics and experience as a financial advisor. She's an accomplished leadership and empowerment strategist and educator and has created a highly effective, life-transforming empowerment program, the Alchemy of Transformation. She awakens your true potential by erasing limiting beliefs and showing you how to live a life you deserve without compromising who you are and what you love. Sounds very interesting, doesn't it? Nicole has appeared on various radio shows, local TV, and as a keynote speaker for international conferences, and even has been on the Travel Channel for Greatest Mysteries Smithsonian. Now, we're going to go into some interesting paranormal aspects as well. Nicole has had some strange occurrences happen to her as well. Nicole's encounters with extraordinary occurrences in her life sparked a profound desire within her to assist individuals in reshaping their connections with themselves, money, and others, ultimately enabling them to attain their level of success that they aspire to achieve. We're going to get deep into it today, folks. Let's welcome into Darkness Radio, Nicole Majik. Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me. This is awesome to be here.
It's awesome to have you. I'll tell you, we're going to get into some high strangeness. We're going to get into money. We're going to get into a lot of different things today, including the conscious and subconscious, and I'm excited to do it. I'm excited to get all into it, and we might even get into a little bit into me. I hate exposing myself to people, but we may do it. I took your quiz online. We'll get to that a little bit later in the program, and maybe you can expose me to the world. Who knows?
I'll be nice. How about that?
Good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's get to you first. Tell us a little bit about you, your beginnings, and how you related to people before some of the more traumatic events of your life. Who was Nicole growing up?
I grew up in a pretty Christian household.
Okay.
So a lot of rigid beliefs, and, there's a lot of great values in the religion. So I feel like there was a lot of great things that were instilled in me, but there was some rigidity in belief system and not being able to expand that conflicted with me personally. So not for anybody else. Everything has its place. So for me, it felt very stifling growing up because I could see spirits, I could hear spirits, I could sense energies, I could see energies and auras around people, and I just knew things. So, and also from the age of 5, I was crossing people over.
Wow.
It started with my grandfather when he passed away. And it was just this funny thing because, growing up, I was different. And it was very noticeable that I was, quote unquote, different. And because I didn't fit into that religious box, I was a little bit of an embarrassment to the family if I said certain things, or if I did certain things, or if I acted in certain ways because of what I could see, hear, sense, and know.
Can you tell us a little bit about seeing your grandfather and what that was like for you? What did he say? What was that conversation like?
It was actually, it felt very natural.
Okay.
Because what happened was a lot of times people will pass in the night, and I'll wake up and I'll come into like this in between awake and sleep state and have that conversation and then kind of cross people over and say goodbye and all that. So what happened with my grandfather was he had passed in the night, and it was, he appeared to me, he told me that he loved me, and it was like, okay, goodbye. And I just kind of walked with him a little bit and then said, that's as far as we go, kind of thing. That's what it felt like. And then my sister in the morning had come to me and said, Pepe Joe, died last night. And I said, yeah, I know. And I was just doing something. And so I was just working on playing with something. And she's like, how do you know? Because she thought she was delivering news.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, Sheba told me, right? And Sheba was my aunt's dog. So my mother's sister. And it was my mom and my aunt's father.
Okay.
And so then that sounded ridiculous to my sister. Sheba told you. And so my aunt and uncle were my godparents, and we were very, very, very close. And Sheba was like my dog. And I could communicate with that dog very easily all of the time. And so it was kind of like that transference of information. It just kind of adulthood. I asked my aunt, what did happen that night on your end? Because she said, oh, I got the call at whatever time it was in the middle of the night. And my uncle ended up standing next to her, and the dog was at her feet. So they were all there getting that information and transferring that information amongst them. And, my energy is mixed in with their energy. And guess what? That's when I got alerted. And then my grandfather had appeared to me, and, we had that conversation. So to me, it was very natural. And that's how it would happen. Sometimes I know people will come to me and I'll cross them over and I'll know who it is. And other times I'll get a sensation of somebody will be passing. So usually when I get that sensation, it's usually within 3 days.
Okay.
That happened with my great aunt. I knew, like, I felt something. I connected. I knew it wasn't mine. I asked whose it was. I got my great aunt, and then I checked in on her, and she was fine. But within 3 days, yes, she passed away.
When you say you walked with your grandfather, and this was as far as you could go, did you feel like a barrier to you at that time, or did it feel like almost like an imaginary line, like, okay, this is as far as I go? Or was it just a feeling like, I can only go so far with you, and you need to take the rest of the journey? At that young age, how did it feel to you?
To me, it felt like almost like if you were walking somewhere and the picture was fading as you're walking. That, like, say you were holding hands with somebody and, the picture is fading. Okay. They're fading, or you're fading. One of you is fading. And it's like, that's it. As soon as you get to a certain point, they're faded right out. They go.
So almost like that literal veil was falling.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. There's been times where I almost, we were talking, Mally and I were talking yesterday on Supernatural News. We were talking about death anxiety, or mortality anxiety, as we called it. You get to a certain age in life, Nicole, and you start thinking about certain things. Your parents are passing, soon, or you think about that. They've only got limited years. You think about, bone soup, I think is what Bruiser and I call it, bone soup, which is just, laying in the grave, and that's it. And that's your bodily part, or your body parts laying in a grave, and water mixing with it, and bugs and all that other stuff, bone soup. So to hear somebody say, well, there's that spirit and it moves on, and it makes that gentle transition, and there's confirmation of it, gives a little bit of salve to the wound, so to speak. But there's still that anxiety. Why is there that? And I told Mally I'd bring this up to you today. Why is there that anxiety when we get older, even though spiritually you're okay, and you continue to get that confirmation? Even doing a show like this, I get that confirmation weekly. But why is there still that anxiety?
Well, that is a great question. And when I contemplate that question, what immediately comes up is a couple different things, right? First of all, whatever your programs are inside is what's going to play out. So God, we could go down a rabbit hole with this. Tim.
I know. I don't ask easy questions. I'm sorry, Nicole.
No, I love this. This is the stuff that I love going into because it can go so deep. I mean, on the surface, it's this. You have beliefs, and those beliefs create certain thoughts and feelings, which end up becoming behaviors. So when we think about death, it's like that fear of the unknown, right? What's going to happen? And was I good enough? If you have a religious programming that was I good enough to make it to heaven? If you believe in heaven and hell, am I going to hell? What is heaven and hell? Or should I have done this stuff through my life? So you go through all these different questions about, you're judging yourself, really.
Yeah.
If we dig a little bit deeper in that, I think, why do we get that anxiety? Because of those programs. And we have a chance to work through those programs, because if we can understand something that is really hard to wrap our 3D heads around, because really these human brains only can understand so much. And if we're not exposed to thinking in different ways or just can't see things certain ways, then we're stuck in a loop of these very rigid ways to see what life and death is. So I always felt that I had a different look on death ever since I was very, very little, especially with that, because it just felt so natural, like, oh, okay, yep, see you again some other time. And the fact that I could see and sense spirits made it easy to know that even when somebody leaves the physical, they're still there in a spiritual space. Sometimes, and, maybe I'll loop back to this maybe.
Sure.
Is sometimes I feel like you may hear from that person in the spiritual once in a while or frequently, or you may never hear from them. And what is the reason for that? I think that there's some reasons that, maybe when we get to the near-death experience stuff, we can loop back to that piece, because there's something else that's happening. Because I really feel like if people are moving from dimension to dimension, so I'll touch on it here, dimension to dimension, that it kind of depends on where they're at in that dimension, if they're actually able to reconnect, if they've fully left the dimension that you knew them in, that you're wondering where they are. So that might not make full sense just yet.
Yeah, it's a little confusing right now, but when we get into it, I think it'll make a little more sense.
It will. So there's that part of it. So that anxiety comes from what's within you, and do you have enough time? So people who might expose you here, Tim, because that beliefs quiz that you took.
Yes, go ahead.
I feel like you don't have enough time to get everything done. So if you're feeling like there's never enough or never enough time,
Yeah.
because usually never enough time is also there's never enough of everything else too.
Yeah.
Because there's a scarcity piece with that. But that never enough time, it's like this lurking thing in the darkness that's like, yep, you're never going to do everything that you want to do, and then you're going to die.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Like,
so it's just a fear.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean, there's so much when you think about it, there's, I mean, in anybody's life, there's so much you want to accomplish, but then you look at the world, the way it's structured, and you go, can I really overcome all that in order to get to where I want to go? And
right.
I think we're set up as a society to be skeptical that you can climb the mountaintop and get there. Because it's a big mountain. It's not a little molehill, Nicole. It's Mount
hard
Kilimanjaro.
And exhausting.
Yeah, it's Mount Kilimanjaro, and there's a lot of dead bodies on the way to the top.
Yeah, and it's scary.
Yeah.
And those bodies stink.
Yes, yeah, and they all died doing a good thing. They all died having the same goal as you. But eventually they all came to their end, and you probably are gonna too. Is the message that we get?
Yeah.
We never get the you can do it, pal. You're special. You got it. Those voices are few and far between.
And even when you get that, sometimes people resist it because their beliefs inside say, like, they want to believe, yeah, I got this, right? And then they feel inside, but not really. And this really isn't, I'm probably not going to do this. Or they just have those self-doubts and everything in there. And there's just so much that comes from, abandonment and guilt and shame and all these little things that propagate all these beliefs and behaviors that we carry out. And if we could just chip away at them, you would be amazed at the accomplishments that you can achieve.
I know we're jumping around a little bit, but do you have to be a Class A narcissist in order to be successful in this life?
No, and narcissists should not be successful, but they tend to be successful because why? Because they don't give a shit about anybody else. So they just forge forward.
That's true.
And they're always after whatever it is that they want. So they'll step on people to get it. And if you're a pushover, a doormat, or a people pleaser thinking that you're going to change somebody, well, guess what? They're going to use and abuse you and leave you for the wolves.
Very true.
Meaning like the rest of their friends, because they're already done with you. They already got what they want.
Very true. Very true. So Nicole growing up is sensing spirits and sees this other realm that we're all not tuned into. And let me ask you this question before we move on, Nicole. Would it be easier for us as human beings to make that transition at the end, if we were able to see this other side, if we were able to say, hey, you know what? Spoiler alert, we know the ending before the end of the movie. If we knew, would it be easier for us to move on?
Absolutely. And so let's jump ahead here, because what I've understood from the different experiences that I've had, whether it's near death or not, just any metaphysical type of experience, it's so interesting, because when you understand yourself, you understand everybody else. So it becomes so much easier to not judge other people, because you're not judging yourself either, and other people's judgment just rolls off. And that's kind of like this mediator step to when we become older. So let's say, this is an observation that I've had. Let's say that, let's look at people in the nursing home. There's a lot of dementia, Alzheimer's, these things that we get older, we lose our minds, right?
Yeah.
So if that's going to happen, guess what takes over? When we're not logically thinking and able to access that logical data, we are running off of what? Muscle memory. So the programs that are programmed in our DNA, inside our bodies, we've done these things for so long, we've thought these ways for so long, that something takes over. Vascular dementia, that's a big one, right? Because it's like this slipping away. And a lot of people watch their loved ones like go from such an amazing person and with all their wits about them, so smart, to crazy and like just coming up with weird and outrageous things. But if you really look at that and you look at the layers to that, I've seen people in those situations where if they have positive beliefs, they tend to move into that sphere of, oh my goodness, look at the animals, look at the fairies, I'm getting visited, and everything is delightful and light. But then you have people who have cynical or narcissistic type beliefs, or, they think that people are out to get them. They judge themselves. They're very insecure, all these different things that people have. Guess what happens with them is that they're thinking in these negative ways. People are out to get me. People are beating me up. People are, you're trying to kill me. Like, you're trying to give them their medicine to help them through their even hospice care. And they're calling their loved ones out saying, you're trying to kill me. They don't mean that. It's a program that's playing out because something is triggering it subconsciously. So the loop is playing.
Yeah.
They may have done something else or, said something nasty when they were with it. So if you look at it and you rewind, look at that person and the way that they would speak and their thoughts and their beliefs and their behaviors, because that's the stuff that gets carried out, which is why I've watched this enough time and watched the energies of people like that, and also assisted in different hospice type situations to help the person transition and the families go through that as well and be supported in that I've made this connection very easily, and I've watched it for years and years and years and years. Now, I look at that and I say, I am so glad I do the work that I do, and I've done as much work on myself as I have done, because when I get into that space, I don't want my kids to, I don't want to be telling my kids that, oh, you're trying to kill me. I want that experience with them. Like, this is beautiful and this is a good transition kind of thing, that they can look at it and be like, okay, mom's ready to go and we can all say goodbye and smile about it. Right.
I understand. Yeah. It's tough to, I saw an interesting quote on somebody's Instagram earlier today, talking about just because you came from abuse doesn't mean that you have to become an abuser.
Exactly.
And that you can change who you are. You don't have to be the product of your upbringing or your DNA.
Yep.
It's not easy. And like, just like as you stated, you do have to train yourself, because there's instincts. And it's difficult, but you ultimately can become the person that you want to become.
Absolutely.
But you have to take from outside resources, and you have to truly want to become that person.
Yes. You want to become that person. You want to commit to that person, and you want to align yourself with becoming that person. I help people do that. When it comes to looking at that stuff, like the epigenetics is one layer of it. So the ancestral beliefs that get passed down in the DNA and kind of get locked into our physical bodies. And then what is it of that ancestral belief system do you own? So sometimes you've got stuff that you play out because it's epigenetic and has been passed down and it's in the DNA. And then you have a different version that gets played out because of what you own. So it can be easy to release the epigenetic layer if you don't own pieces of it. When you own pieces of it, because when you own pieces of it, you have to release those things that you are taking ownership of first. I've had clients say, oh, I want to release all these epigenetic layers. And I say, yeah, but you haven't done your work yet. So we can figure out what's epigenetic and what's yours. And of those pieces of those epigenetic layers, what is it that you're owning, and release that first? Because if you're still holding on to it, you're going to hold on to the epigenetic layer of it because it belongs there.
Yeah.
But if you release your ownership of that, the epigenetic layer can slough off just like that. So people try to do things that, oh, it's so easy. You just, let it go. And then, yes, you can just let it go, but you've got to be in the right positioning to let it go.
I agree. You have to deal with the here and now and the things that are happening in this life before you can deal with what happened in the past.
Yeah. You don't want to you don't want to try to drag a chain across from somewhere and wrap it around your neck around a tree first, and then, pull on it a little bit first and then decide, oh, you're going to let it go after you've tied it in a knot. No.
No, doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. No. It's, get this thing untangled, get yourself out of it, and then let this thing go, because then it's just going to melt into the pot.
Very much so. I tell you what, Nicole, let's take our break here. When we come back, not only have you in your young life had a bit of an experience or experiences with dealing with the dead, now we come to the episodes where you darn near become one of the dead. Near-death experiences is where we're going next. We'll talk about, I'm trying to find a delicate way to put this, Nicole. You've had not just one near-death experience, but you've dabbled. We'll put it that way. You've dabbled. We'll talk about Nicole's near-death experiences, and we'll figure out where she wants to go with this, because some of it's a little delicate. So we'll follow Nicole's lead on that. And then when we come back as well, we'll talk a little bit about how you can start to manifest some things. We're coming up on the holiday season. Of course, we're in the holiday season with Thanksgiving. We're coming up on different winter celebrations, whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it is you celebrate. And of course, we all want to manifest this time of year. We want abundance. We want money in our lives. We want to be able to give to different people in our families. We want abundance, of course, all year round. But some of us may be struggling at the holidays. So we're looking to get some sort of abundance in our life so we can spread that wealth. We'll talk to Nicole a little bit about what it is we need to change about ourselves to get that abundance in our life. That'll be part of our second part of our program here. Nicole Majik is our guest. There's a book out there as well, Nicole, A Mile in Her Shoes, right?
Yeah, I did a chapter in an anthology called A Mile in Her Shoes, talking about some obstacles that I overcame and also looking back at things from a different perspective. So I kind of give the perspective of what was happening while it was happening, and then reflecting back in a new perspective and how I could shift all of that energy from the past to support me in the future.
Interesting. Well, we'll put up links to not only your YouTube page, your website, and some of your socials, but we'll also we'll try to put up a link to that book as well, so people can pick up the book and read that chapter as well. So during the break, check out all of the links in the description below and check out more about Nicole. In the meantime, more with Nicole Majik when we come back here on the Best in Paranormal Programming. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the Best in Paranormal Programming. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Tim Dennis. Our guest is Nicole Majik, and we're going to jump in just a little bit into the waters of near-death experiences. We don't want to go too far because that means you're on the other side. Nicole, before the break, we were talking about your psychic gifts and mediumistic gifts of being able to talk to spirits on the other side, or at least being able to feel when spirits are crossing over, which I find incredibly fascinating. I've had my own experiences of being able to feel people as they're crossing over. I don't know that I like that experience, because at times I've been able to feel sometimes how they're going. It creates an anxiety in me, believe it or not. It's not pleasant for me. But with that, you've had your own near-death experience. Now, I have to tell you, from my standpoint, I had one bout with sepsis where I just saw the room go black, and I came back. Now, I was told at the time that it just wasn't my time to go, so I didn't have that near-death experience. I kind of came to the edge. I'll quote David Lee Roth here. I came to the edge, and there I stood and looked down, but there wasn't anything there, obviously, because I was not close. I wasn't as close as other people got, or it just wasn't my time. Which scared the hell out of me, by the way. But with your near-death experience, can you set up for us the very first near-death experience you had and walk us through what happened that day that got you so close to the veil?
Oh, okay. So I was working in Cambridge as a chemist at the time. So I used to go in early so I could get out early and kind of beat all the rush hour so it wouldn't be such a harrowing experience on the road. The day, it was March 3rd, 2006. And I got out of work an hour later, so that put me right in rush hour, high rush hour to go home. So this was like a 1.5 to 2 hour ride home in that type of traffic. So it's kind of like, oh, whatever. And then when I got on the highway, I ended up, Tool Stinkfist was on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my favorite band at the time. So I cranked it up and was just like, all right, well, we're just listening to this and, we'll make the best of this ride home.
Yep.
And what ended up happening was all of a sudden we're creeping along, maybe at 30 miles an hour or so. And we're creeping along and I see there's a couple cars pulled over, a car down in the ditch. The car is smoking. Everybody's slowing down so they can see what's going on over there. And then my attention gets brought over to the left side of me on the other side of the highway. It almost like somebody whipped my face around. Like, don't look over there, look over here. And I saw this woman and everything was slow motion now. It was frame by frame slow motion. But my mind was on overdrive and on rapid thinking and rapid analysis. And I'm looking at this woman and she was swaying with the impact on her car and her driver's side door was smashed in. So I was having this whole conversation in my head on multiple levels. Oh, look at her beautiful hair. She had this beautiful black curly hair. Oh, I can't see her face, but I could see her hair and I could see little highlights of the light that was reflecting off of strands of her hair. And I'm like taking notice of how beautiful that looks. And then I see the crunch on her door saying, oh, well, what happened here? And how did she get hit? And where is the other car anyway? And then when I asked, where's the other car? It was like somebody just flipped my chin right up to like, look over here. And now I'm looking at this guy in his car who clearly had hit her, went up over the Jersey barrier and was about to land in my lap, right where my steering wheel was.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So again, we're still in this frame by frame. And I'm looking up at him and his face is all contorted and he's screaming, he's terrified. And I looked at his eyes and our eyes kind of met for like a piece of a second. And when our eyes met, I realized, oh my God, he's landing on my lap. His car is going to roll over on top of my car. So both of the roofs of our cars were going to smash in. Mine was going to smash down on me, snapping my neck, and then I'm dead. And when I realized that, a couple things happened all at once. So I realized that. I ducked down and I screamed like a little girl because I was trying to get my head as far down as possible so I wouldn't get my neck snapped. And while that happened, I had this flash of, I sat down with every single one of my kids and my husband at the time, and I had a whole conversation with each one individually, said my goodbyes, and when it was all said and done, I just said, okay, I'm ready. And then this peace and love flooded over me, and it just felt like it melted my body, like any stress in my body, and then everything became relaxed. And then everything went black. And once everything went black, it felt like I was the the ball in a pinball machine and somebody released that little thing that pushes it out and transports it. And I'm going through this tunnel at these high speeds and seeing, shapes and stuff. And then what happened next was all of a sudden, when I came to, it was as if you come up from water and couldn't breathe and were just on that brink of death. So I gasped for air. So I came in and I grabbed onto the steering wheel, white knuckles, and just went, as this huge gasp for as much air as I could get in. Meanwhile, it was like this jolt to my system and saying, oh my God, I almost died. And then I looked in my rearview mirror and I'm like, there's no car behind me. Oh my God, I should have been dead. And I'm going, okay, where are all the cars on the road? We're in high traffic on the Massachusetts Turnpike, high, rush hour traffic. And there's no cars before me, no cars behind me, no cars on the other side as I'm saying, oh my God, am I dead? And then I see this one lone car kind of putter up on the other side of the highway going in the opposite direction. And I'm thinking, my joke of this, but it wasn't really a joke. I kind of said it to myself where I'm like, okay, well, which side of the freaking highway am I on? Is this the highway to heaven or the highway to hell? Because I don't know which music to put on right now. And then I sat there and I was like, knee-jerk reaction. I called my mom, right? Because I need to know, am I dead? What's happening? Because this is weird. This is so weird. And when I called her, I'm going to talk really fast because this was my mom when she answered the phone. Oh my God, Nikki, are you okay? I was just praying for you. I usually pray for you in the morning, but I just felt like I just needed to pray for you. Are you all right? What's going on? And I was like, Mom, can you just shut up for a minute? Like, I don't know what else to say. I'm like, can you just shut up? And I said, Mom, am I dead? And she's like, no, what? You're not dead. You're talking to me on the phone. What are you talking about? And I told her what happened. And I'm like, I can't wrap my head around this right now. And she said, oh, you rode angel wings. I'm like, well, it felt more like a wormhole, but whatever you want to call it, angel wings, wormholes, I don't know, portals to other dimensions. And I said, I did it. Whatever it is, yep, I did that. And I just felt like this excitement about my life because now I just have to back up a little bit because before that happened, I fantasized about death every single day. At that time, I had 3 children of the 4 that I have now. Mm-hmm. And after my 3rd son, I ended up with postpartum depression that spiraled into deeper levels of depression I didn't even know. Mm. And I just carried on. And it just became this obsession with death. How could I die? How could I exit this world? I wanted to die. And yet, at the same time, I'd fantasize about any death, any type of death, any way possible, the most beautiful, the most brutal, all of it, every day, all day long. And still, when I'd fantasize about it, and then I'd say, okay, well, those kids need me, so just hold on a little longer. So that became my mantra of just hold on a little longer, just a little longer, just a little longer, just a little longer. And I kind of liken it to, now that one of my kids is in the Air Force, it's that, when they train for spec ops stuff and they don't know how long they're going to be trekking for. And it's just one more step, one more step, one more step, one more step. And it's kind of like eating the elephant. How do you do it? One bite at a time, one step at a time, one more moment at a time, one more day at a time, all of those things. And it trains your brain to just be a little bit more present, a little bit more in the moment, and just be here for now.
You gave yourself the tools and you didn't even know it.
Yeah. And in that, so when we look at what actually happened, I really feel like when I went through that, the seeing what was going to happen, with my neck getting snapped and dying, I think that that actually happened in one dimension. And I died, and then I became consciousness. And then going through that wormhole, I was projected into this next dimension, of which this consciousness ended up merging with that Nicole in that dimension, because things were different after that point. Not just that all of the depression was gone.
Okay.
Literally wiped out, erased. A fervor for life was there. I went home and I was like, oh my God, my son used to meet me at the door. So I grabbed, that's my second son. I grabbed that kid and I squeezed him and I was like, I love you so much. I love you so much. And I was like almost crying, just like crying out of that love and joy that was there. But there were little things that were different. They remembered things differently than I did. Mm-hmm. I remember being in places that were different than where they remember us sharing experiences. Things were placed in the house a little bit differently. Not enough to be like, what am I, crazy? But enough to be like, is this like, am I crazy?
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah.
You know, like a different level of that where, why don't I remember that? And then there was something that the kids asked me, hey, Mom, remember this? And I didn't remember it. I said, no, I don't remember that like that.
Now, you don't chalk that up to trauma from the actual accident?
It's just memories. This is memory, and it was told to me, you know, that's one of the most memorable days that we had. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't remember it like that at all.
Well, the reason I ask, could it be trauma from the accident? Because, I mean, if this thing landed right on top of you, obviously there had to have been head trauma, correct?
Well, that's the thing is I was projected 2.5 miles away from where that took place. So I was still driving fully in my car, 100%, 2.5 miles away, because I checked, because there was a certain bridge that I went under when I came to and had that, gasping for air. When I was projected forward, I was projected forward 2.5 miles away. And there were no cars on the road. So it wasn't that the accident stopped cars, because if I was 2.5 miles forward from that, then there should have been a bunch of cars on that road.
So you're saying you physically woke up?
Yes. Driving 2.5 miles away.
I thought you were saying metaphorically you woke up in another dimension. You physically woke up.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Whoa.
And not only that, one of my friends, she changed jobs, and it was a year to the day that happened. And she was having lunch with her new people, and they were all talking about this accident that happened a year ago that day. And they said right where it was, where I was, because it was like right in this particular area around Framingham, Massachusetts. And then they said a guy hit a woman, went up over the Jersey barrier, landed on another woman's car, and the guy and that woman died. So there's that.
Okay, so my question here to you is this. Now, I've heard of, and we've heard of on the show before, of the phenomenon known as walk-ins, or walking into a body from, one spirit walking into a body from another body. Yet it seems like that's not this phenomenon.
No, and I thought it was for a little while because I wasn't sure what happened. And I did learn about walk-in experiences, and it's extremely similar to what happened with me because a lot of things were amplified. I didn't feel like myself, 100%, but I couldn't put a finger on certain things. My visions were amplified, my ability to utilize healing energy, facilitate healing energy amplified to the max, like the visions, everything. Like my intuition just went into this crazy place. And I saw things, I knew things that to a level that was just ridiculous to me. And then when I learned about this walk-in experience, because I was actually on a retreat that I went on and learned about walk-in experience, and I was like, oh my God, is that what happened to me? Because it was very similar, but there were certain things that just didn't quite close certain gaps. So I just kind of chalked it up to that for a while until I saw the movie Interstellar.
Okay.
And then when I saw the movie Interstellar, something clicked watching that movie that made me realize, oh, I just jumped a different dimension. And my consciousness just transferred. Because, energy is neither created nor destroyed. So where does it go when if we're interdimensional and we've got all these dimensional selves happening all at once? What happens when one dies? Where is it going to go? It goes somewhere. It transfers somewhere. So maybe it transfers all different places. And, this is where I ended up.
So I've got a couple different questions here, Nicole, and I'm going to throw one at you and then another in different scenarios. The first one would be this. Are you saying you don't believe in a great holding pen or a great heaven and that maybe you just transfer to another dimension and there's not a pearly gates and a quantum heaven or anything like that? We just continue on a different timeline?
That's what I believe. That's what I experienced. That's what I believe. And when all of the near death or otherworldly experiences that I've had, there's no none of this heaven, purgatory, and hell stuff. That's stuff that we make up, that we have in our belief system. So guess what? If it's locked in your belief system, that's also going to play out. Right? Because if you're thinking that you're going to go to hell, guess what you're going to create at the time of your death? A hell. I've experienced a hell realm when I was a child in the astral. And they're not fun places, but they're educational places. They're educational places for our own deep inner fears to overcome them. They're places that show us how can we tap into ourselves on a much deeper level so that we can be courageous and confident and fearless and authentic. But if we hold on to them as, oh my God, that's hell, and I don't ever want to go there, and I'm so petrified of that place, so I need to be good, you're only propagating the negative beliefs.
My second question is this. Is it possible that you were looked out after by something or some being that at the very last moment decided this isn't the fate for Nicole, that she's not ready for her eternal reward, she's not ready yet to go to quote unquote the other side, that you as a child were seeing or escorting people to, that it's time to grab her from that one dimension, throw her into another, and it's time for her to still continue this 3D existence. So in order to do that, we need to put her in another body or her same body, or we need to reboot her. Is it possible you had divine intervention instead of a true near-death experience?
I won't say that it's not possible. Right? I won't say it's not possible.
It's the, pardon my language, it's the damnedest experience I've ever heard. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I hear about this stuff quite frequently. In fact, our good friend Mike Ricksecker talks about timeline jumps or things like that. And we've talked about it on the show where someone feels like they might have had an accident that they could have died in one timeline, but they end up, like if one event could have happened just the wrong way in this timeline, they could have died in that timeline, and this starts a whole new timeline here. Or, the Mandela effect is the way that people put it.
Yeah. People
will hear this program and think, well, you're a classic example of the Mandela effect.
Could be.
But you are an example of the Mandela effect existing in the same timeline.
Yeah.
Where you have physical evidence that you died in an intersection, yet you still are alive.
Or who was put in my place. So if it was a different dimension, or so if I died in the other dimension, so this is how I look at it, is if I died in the other dimension, that's something that played out that I died in that dimension. So if my consciousness transfers into a different dimension, going into the different dimension, there are slight nuances, slight differences in a dimension that you can actually jump into. Because if you jumped into a dimension that was completely different, let's say I jump into a space and I'm like a billionaire and I've got like all this stuff going on, you can't jump into a body that's living a completely different life with memories from that past life that you were just living. Your brain wouldn't be able to handle it. Your thoughts would like just dismantle and you'd go nuts instantly is how I look at it. But when you jump into a dimension, and I feel like we do this all the time. When we make shifts and changes, we can jump into a slightly different dimension that is shifting. So it's getting us closer to where we want to be. So we're kind of interacting at these fulcrums, right?
Right.
What decision are you going to make, Tim? You can go this way, you can go that way. Mm-hmm. Right? And if we look at it as if I jumped from one dimension to another, one of those shifts in that dimension is I don't die, so I'm somewhere else. Maybe I left 10 minutes earlier than I did before, so I was several miles away. And somebody else was in that position at that particular time and place, and they died. So it was still a woman, so it still allows me to say, oh, here I am. In another dimension, it's probably some other dude. In another dimension, there was no car there, and this guy flips over and lands on the other side, and maybe he's still alive.
But you're talking about a scenario where, and I'm about to blow people's minds here, maybe a little bit, Nicole, where you might have actually physically broke the timeline in that moment when you said goodbye to your family. You might have spiritually, your spirit and your body might have physically leapt out of this timeline, went into a different timeline, left behind a doppelganger in that car that was killed, continued in a different timeline, as you put it, or this timeline as we know it. Yet your friends remember the old timeline.
Yeah.
Have you been able to look this up in any media or newspaper that accident happened?
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing, is that those people were talking about it and my friend told me about it. When it happened, I tried to figure out, right around the time that it happened, I was looking for any like media pieces. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, hey, if anybody can find it, it was, somewhere around Framingham, Massachusetts, on the Massachusetts Turnpike on March 3rd, 2006, somewhere around 4 p.m. hour. I think I left work at 4 p.m., so it might have been closer to 4:30-ish, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And I don't know. I tried to look it up. I couldn't find anything. But looking up things online seem to be very oddly peculiar to me
Well,
in the first place, that I can never find what I'm looking for. But
we have a
I
lot
couldn't find it.
we have a lot of law enforcement that listen to the show. We have a lot of super sleuths that listen to the show. If there's someone out there that can look it up or find it, please let us know. Email me, tim@darknessradio.com. I will get a hold of Nicole and let her know if they can find something that's actually tangible, whether it be a police report or some media source or an article that actually details this accident. If you can find
that thing, and I'll give you a free session with me.
There you
go.
There you go.
Mwah.
So that's what we'll do. So you have this initial, I don't know what to call this, near-death experience, time jump. So are we cool to talk about the other stuff, or what do you want to talk about when it comes to the other near-death experiences?
So, well, let's talk about that other thing, the being, and then I'll talk a little bit about that the other near-death experience I had this year, if that's okay.
Please, wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah, I don't really get to talk about, somehow, like, our conversations. In podcasts, I don't get to talk about the little Mantis guy very often, but it was really freaky because after my 4 kids, I had a tubal ligation. So I had my tubes clamped up. And so when I went in for this surgery, it's in and out surgery. It's just laparoscopic. Mm-hmm. So I went in, and, easy. I was prepped. I went into the surgery. Everything was cool. I don't have a lot of fear around stuff. So it was just like, yep, here I am. We're doing the thing. And then they started giving me the anesthesia to put me out. And I saw this Mantis being, and I've only seen this Mantis being maybe 3 or 4 times. Because it's always very peculiar when this mantis being shows up, and it's like this white gold mantis with like this thing, some kind of, like, whatever he wears is like this cloak thing, and I get the sense that he is kind of very, like, medical doctor-ish. So I looked at him and I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I'm here to protect you." Well, obviously telepathically.
Yeah.
And I went, "Protect me from what?" And I went out. I was out. Huh. I was saying, "Protect me from what?" And then when I came to, I was in the little holding room before they bring you into, the room that you get to leave from. And I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't move. I could only hear what was going on. And there was a nurse that was behind me, off to my left, just slightly, where my head was. And there was another nurse that was coming up from the right-hand side, like she was coming up, like, behind my head too, but walking up from a little bit of a distance, maybe about like 15 feet away. And she's like, "What happened in there?" And I was like, "Oh shit, what did happen in there?" Right? Like, who is she talking about? So I'm just listening. And then the other one that was next to me said, "Oh my God, it was a difficult ligation. There was blood everywhere." And I'm thinking, now my mind is racing in my head saying, who is she talking about? Are they talking about me? And then I remembered that they had told me I was the only tubal ligation that happened that morning.
Oh my God.
And so I'm like, they're talking about me. And then all of a sudden, I was getting curious, and I'm like, "Do tell, go on." I'm like, "Please tell me what the hell is happening here." And then, and then all of a sudden I started coming to. So now I'm coughing because of that tube that they pull out, and it's all scratchy and it hurts a little. And so that's coming to. And now the nurses, because she was waiting for me to wake up, and I'm like coughing. And then all of a sudden this unimaginable pain was shooting down my left leg. So I went and I grabbed at my left leg, and I was like, "Ow," screaming a little bit in that pain. And she's like, "Oh, are you in pain?" And I said, "Why does my leg hurt so bad?" And she's like, "Oh, it was probably just the position the doctor had you in." And she probably didn't expect me to have wits to me because, coming out of that. And I said, "What do you mean? It was a laparoscopic surgery. I shouldn't have been in any position." And then she just went boom and like bumped me with morphine. And she's like, "Oh, you're in pain." And I'm like, "Yeah, but," and now I'm all out of it. Right?
Right.
And then they were upset that I wasn't ready to go home shortly after because I'm super, super sensitive to any kind of that stuff. Like I am out way longer than anybody else when it comes to that stuff. I don't like that stuff.
Yeah.
But woo. And nobody ever told me what was actually happening with all of that. I could never get an answer after that. So that was that thing.
Nicole, have you seen this mantis being since then?
I have sensed the mantis being once since then.
Once.
Yeah.
Has it appeared to you and said, other than it was there to help you or protect you, has it said what its mission is, what it's doing in your life, where it's from, anything like that?
I saw the mantis after that first near-death experience in 2006, when I was connecting with my guides and doing more of a healing session on myself.
Okay.
And he was in that mix. So I always just chalked it up as one of my guides.
Okay.
But those ones, and I always loved praying mantises. I've bred them, I've hatched them, I've mated them, like, and collected their eggs and saved all kinds of different things. And always had this fascination with them. So when I saw a mantis being, and it was like white and gold and I don't know, this stardusty, it was really interesting to meet that one. But they don't say much. They have a presence. They have a very strong presence, yet few words. And when they show up, it is extremely meaningful. It's not like they pop in and they're like, "Hey, yo, how are you doing? Nice to see you. All right, have a nice day. Bye." It's nothing like that at all. So I don't know. That was one of those things.
Well, I guess the reason I ask is I'm wondering if that mantis being showed up and said, "I saved you."
Yeah, well, he did say he was there to protect me. So,
well, I mean, in the first NDE.
Oh, maybe.
If he was the one who plucked you out of that timeline.
Who knows? It could have been.
I just think that, if maybe he's the one who's been behind it all along.
Maybe. If so, Mantis, come back and tell me in my dreams.
See, that's the thing. I'm wondering if there's potentially a reveal here of some sort.
There could be. Because I think in those weird space. Well, actually, what's hitting me right now, okay, we might be putting puzzle pieces together. Because I was just thinking with the near-death experience from my surgery from this year, I felt the presence of the mantis. I didn't see him. Okay. I felt the presence. I felt a huge presence of a lot of things all at once. It was like this big ball of energy, and that was lumped in there. But if we think about the symbolism of the praying mantis was, at least in Egyptian times, symbolic of the guide that guides you to the afterlife. So who knows? Maybe the mantis beings are similar to that. I don't know. I just think that they're weird.
Yeah.
In a very cool way. And they just don't offer up a lot of information. So if anybody else has information on that, let me know too, because I'd love to hear if you had any kind of mantis experience.
Absolutely.
They're just not They don't come forward and just blabbermouth everything.
Right. I know you're a little guarded on the third NDE that you had, and we can leave that for another day or another time if you want. I don't know how much you want to talk about that. I leave that to you.
Well, maybe we can do a little teaser on it.
Sure. Yeah, if you'd like.
How about that?
Sure.
Because,
that's fine.
and then maybe if people want to hear the full story, some things reason why I say teaser is there are still some things that are unfolding from this. And this has been the most profound experience that I have ever had that has unfolded rapid fire in the way that it has since. So it was June 22nd. I went in for gallbladder surgery. And it kind of came up pretty quickly to get that surgery, although it was a scheduled surgery. About a week to 10 days before that surgery, I had this knowing that I had the chance to choose if I come back or not.
Wow.
And that was a big thing because I couldn't tell anyone that I had that choice. Because in that, if I did do that, knowing that people are mostly not in the same mindset space as I am, as soon as I tell somebody that, and especially if they propagate that out to other people, as soon as I tell somebody that, I am now co-creating, allowing somebody else to co-create my life with me. So, and that would be based on most likely their fears. So if somebody was worried that I wasn't going to come back, they would be focused on me not coming back.
Yeah.
And guess what? I don't get to fully make that decision anymore because I've just allowed somebody else to co-create with me.
Yeah.
So I had to be very careful around acknowledging that decision exists and not dwelling on it, which I was able to do very simply and easily. And when I went into, and I didn't know what I was going to choose, and I just left it that way. When I went in to go get the surgery done, it was like 9:42, turning 9:43, and they wheeled me into the surgery room, and I sat there, and then all of a sudden I kind of went into this trance mode, which was me making the decision that I wanted to come back. So I had sent a message telepathically to one of my really good and connected friends intuitively. And I said to her, remember these words. I have to come back. And I have a lot of things left to do here. I have a lot of unfinished business here to do. I have to come back. And then they were getting the robot arms ready and they put me on the table and I went out. And when I went out, I ended up, it was almost like this domino effect. Everything was happening super fast. So instead of before where it was frame by frame, I was like ripping through space and time like there was no tomorrow. Maybe there wasn't at one point, right? But I was ripping through and I met with all these people. And it was like I had an experience with these people and it was just touch and go. And whatever happened in that, I was reassuring them or something. I was connecting with them. And then when it came to the friend that I said, remember these words, she had told me later that all of a sudden, she said, I don't know what you were doing at exactly 10:08, which I was under surgery at that point in time.
Yep.
She said, you appeared in my car. I felt your presence in my car because I was driving. And I said, oh, hello, Nicole. And she said, I felt like you were struggling with the decision on whether to come back or not, which was really weird to me. So I just said, you need to come back. You have a lot of stuff left to do. So get your ass back there and come back, you know? And then she said, I just felt you go. And I carried on. And she said, I was getting worried when I didn't hear from you for hours and hours and hours and hours. Now, when I went back, then there was this light burst of energy and massive, massive downloads. So it was almost like if somebody were to open up a picture book that was huge and thick and they're flashing all these images before you, you'd get like pieces of all of these different images, but not the full picture.
Okay.
And so it was like, you know, different pieces of information came locked in, like 9 years and November to February, and just all these little bits and pieces came in. And it was like a knowing that when the time came, because if I remembered all of this stuff, my brain would just go help and want to fizzle out.
Yeah.
That when the time came, that the rest of the information would unlock itself. And it has. I've said stuff in situations where I was like, why did you say that? I'm like, I don't know. But right before I said it, I saw that light burst. So every time it's a piece of that, I see or feel this light burst all over again. And the stuff just comes flying out of my mouth, or it's like, I just know I need to do this, or I need to connect with this person, or whatever the case is. What ended up happening during that light burst too was I felt very connected to another energy, somebody that I felt was a past life connection that I've been feeling like in my lifetime I've been looking for over and over and over again. And I felt versions of this energy. And it was almost like, no, not exactly that, not exactly that. And it never turned out like I knew that, like, this is similar, but this isn't it. This isn't it. Well, come to find out, fast forward a little bit, 3 weeks later, a friend of mine kind of played this like middle person of, inviting the two of us out with him and his woman. And we just hit it off, and it was like neither one of us wanted a relationship. There's just like there was a lot of stuff going on. I just came out of a relationship that was, a little bit traumatic for me to come out of, and really like just a lot of stuff for me to process, and wanted to be alone in that processing. And the same thing with him, like he had so much stuff that was going on. It was like, no. And then it really was, yeah, but you guys don't know that you're really meant to meet at this point in time. So we've kind of like, just we connected, we talked, all that stuff. And it was like, all right, this is kind of weird that I feel like I've freaking known you for like 10,000 years. It's kind of like a little joke. So we've been together ever since. And it's just like weird. Like we developed a relationship, obviously, and then, at some point, like just became, each other's partner.
You can't deny the universe, that's for sure. Yeah.
It's just such a weird thing, and so many interesting things, like the synchronicities. That's what I can't get into just yet, because it's like this whole book of stuff that I've been trying to keep track of, and the synchronicities are just crazy. And it's almost like this person is like a male version of me, and I'm the female version of him, and we think exactly alike, and like just all of the things that click, everything is like the same, and it's just the weirdest freaking thing. And we've connected at these super deep levels that have opened up literally the cosmos. Like I could look at him and he could be looking at me, and I'm like, I see the universe. Your face just disappeared and I see the universe. Or it starts off with these light streaks, and I'm like, I can see your stardust. He's like, well, that's weird, because I feel like I'm seeing the same thing. And we would have the same exact experience, seeing the same thing in each other's faces. And it just baffles my mind. And knowing that in that light burst, there was something like between November and February, there's all this stuff that's happening, and certain things, kind of like the sensation of what was to come revealed. And so I knew it was going to be a very intense time, and possibly stressful, and just keep remaining calm and focus, and like all this stuff. And there's a lot of inner stuff to overcome on both people, and then all the other extraneous outside stuff that's happening. There's just so many things that's unfolding. That's the part that, there's so many layers of it that don't yet make full sense to me. So it's hard to talk about them as far as that is. So I kind of feel like next year, maybe after February,
Yeah.
things will make a lot more sense. And maybe I'll be able to talk about this a lot more in detail, because it's just some of the things that have happened have been absolutely mind blowing that I don't even know how to process it just yet.
Understandable. That's kind of cool that you made that connection, though. And what would be interesting is to figure out how many past lives you've had together and what those past lives are. And maybe there's some instances where the two of you are in an Egyptian court together where you were, seers or something like that, or something to that effect.
There's definitely the one that's played out over and over and over again through my entire life that I've seen in a vision and dreams. He confirmed, because he's like, I have these weird dreams about us, but it's not us. And I'm like, oh, tell me about it. So he started telling that particular one. He's had others. So he seems to have the past life visions in his dreams. But when he was describing the one that is the most particular that I've seen over and over and over again, he starts telling it. And I was like, wait, let me say some of the details. And he's like, what the? He's kind of freaked out. And it's kind of fun because, it's fun to freak out a little bit over it because it's just exciting. It's not necessarily scary. It's super exciting. And that when you can finish the sentence or the paragraph and
or finish the
detail.
Dream. Yeah, finish the dream. Yeah, right. That's scary but great at the same time. Yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah, it's freaking fun.
That's right. Let's switch gears a little bit here, Nicole. Let's talk a little bit about. Well, first of all, before we do that, I want to focus on one other thing about you that I find incredibly interesting. We were talking about it before the show. And that's about your chemical makeup, about the fact that at one point when you were a scientist, you went through mercury poisoning, which is incredibly scary.
Yeah.
Explain to us how that happened and about your particular chemical makeup that you were telling me this before the show. It was mind blowing. To tell our audience about it, because I still am mind blown about this and trying to process this.
Yeah. Oh, God. All right, so deep breath in. I was working as a chemist. We had some reorganizations, and my group that I was leading was going into another building and we were going to be in 3 different labs over at this other building. So I had this little office that they put me up in, and at one point, because it was several years in that I started getting a couple years in, I started getting symptoms, and I just chalked it up to stress all the time because, my job was stressful. There were a lot of changes in the company, a lot of growth in the company. I had to figure out how to keep my team on track when we are the hub of 8 different departments in pharmaceutical development, and just be in this place of keeping everything even keel and full steam ahead and tight timelines and tighter timelines. So it was stressful. Also, the international campaigns were stressful too, being the person that everything's coming through on the analytical side. So when it got worse and I started going into these symptoms that I really needed some medical attention, I'd get tested and everything was told to me, everything is normal, Nicole. Everything seems normal. What ended up happening is I got to the point where it got to my brain, and I still didn't know what it was. The doctors didn't know what it was. And it was almost like I was a stroke victim where I couldn't understand what people were saying. You would talk to me, Tim, and I would hear wah, 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 like the Peanuts character, teacher. And it would take me a minute, wait. And I just knew I just had to wait until my brain finally processed it. And people would be like, are you going to answer? Are you going to answer? Now, I don't know what they're saying next but I got to the point where I could understand what people were saying energetically when they were like, hey, you going to answer me? Like, hello, what's going on?
Yeah.
And when it came to answering them, then I had to find the words to speak, and I couldn't get from my brain to my lips what I wanted to say. So I knew what a stroke victim felt like, and I had to slow down so much. And for somebody who has to make decisions quickly and talks a little bit faster and can just do things, I had to slow down a lot. To the point where it felt like I wasn't really able to do my job. I was pulled out of work. I was passing out. I was in so much pain. It was ridiculous. If I sat down, it hurt. If I laid down, it hurt. If I stood up, it hurt. If I walked, it hurt. Everything hurt. And it hurt to the point where it felt like somebody had a sledgehammer and smashing my bones in my legs, my hips, my legs, everywhere.
Oh.
So that's what it felt like to me. When I would wake up in the morning, it progressively went from taking an extra 15 minutes to taking an extra 3 hours until I had to throw myself out of bed onto the floor, cause more pain than it would be to just continue laying in bed and to be able to get up and move around. Because once I was moving around, it was like, okay, well, this is the same pain if I lay down than it is moving around.
Yeah.
And nothing touched it. So it didn't matter. Like, you couldn't take ibuprofen or whatever. And I wasn't one to take stuff like that anyway. So fast forward to a point where I was getting my daughter some cereal, and I had the milk in my hand. I passed out. And I woke up and she was kind of slapping my face, laughing, thinking I was joking around with her and all that stuff. And so when I came to, I pretended that I was just joking with her and realizing, oh shit, if I don't figure this out, I am definitely going to die. Because nothing was coming back. There was no promise of doctors being able to figure out what was wrong with me, and just all of this stuff that I said, okay, that freaked me out enough, knowing that being the sole provider for a family of 6, my husband at the time was disabled. We had 4 children, and then we had some pets like everybody else does. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be dead and they're going to be homeless. So I shut myself up in a room and said, okay, I'm just going to become my own client, because I've done enough intuitive work for other people that if these doctors can't figure it out, I need to figure out what it is energetically and go from there. And I wrote down every symptom that I could remember. And I scanned my body over and over and over again in a meditative state, in a trance state. And I kept hearing mercury. So I put 2 and 2 together after looking at all the symptoms, keep hearing mercury. Being a chemist, I'm like, well, okay, let's look up the symptoms of mercury poisoning. And if you take each symptom individually, it's just like what was happening to me. My hair was falling out. I had issues with like weight loss, weight gain, like weird, erratic little like weight fluctuations that went up and down with no reason why, being off center, walking into walls, the passing out, like the progression of how it goes through the body. And once it reaches the brain, I mean, I was typing a report, an update for a presentation I was going to be giving for chemistry. And I'm looking at what I'm writing, and it was all gibberish. And when I really looked at, after confirming that my fingers are on the right keys, I realized I was typing the entire sentence backwards. I was thinking forwards, typing backwards. So it was this whole thing that progressed. And when I called the doctor up after having umpteen amount of tests done, walking around looking like a freak with headgear and like brain stuff and heart monitors and all these like things, looking like some freak out of Star Trek half the time, I said, hey, I think you need to test me for mercury poisoning. And he laughed at me, saying, no, Nicole, like nobody gets mercury poisoning. I'm like, well, can you amuse me? Because I think I have mercury poisoning. And he's like, why would you think that? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm just saying that if I do, then something needs to get done, because, you know, what I did was this. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, that's woozy woo. Okay, fine. Just amuse me. Simple blood test.
Yeah.
And I've had so much blood taken out. What's one more, right?
Right.
And then I got the call after that was done that you need to go see a specialist immediately. Like, this is scary, crazy. I don't know what to do. So I did do that. And that person said to me, I can't believe that you're having a conversation with me right now, Nicole. And I was talking like this, right? So I couldn't really get stuff out of my face. And when I said, well, you call this a conversation? And he said, well, let me put it into perspective. Most people with levels as high as yours are either vegetables or dead.
Oh,
So there's that, you know? And I said, okay, well, that's not an option. What do we do? And I went into chelation therapy, which was a little controversial at the time that I was going through it. And it was very expensive. All the stuff that I did, that even just that first month was like $18,000. I had to carry around a suitcase of all kinds of stuff. Like, it was stripped my body of all the good things and the bad things. So there was a lot of buffers and this and that and supplements to, give me nutrients, stuff to take stuff out. And it was just, I would not wish that on my worst enemy ever, because it just sucked so bad, but was worth it because here I am and I'm alive.
you're a walking miracle there, Nicole.
But that experience is what brought me where I am, and really being able to harness the abilities from within on a very specific level in the mindset space, and tapping into how to manifest a life that you really, really want and overcome any kind of challenge that gets in your way. I mean, everything was crashing down around me. Like, relationships were destroyed. My work was like, there was no growth for my work. And then I was lumped into a layoff when I asked to have them test for mercury in that other room that I ended up finding out later was the old thermometer room. So obviously there's going to be mercury vapors in there with a 32-year half-life.
Right. Well, with that, let's get into the positive now. Let's talk positivity. We've gone through the rigmarole, we've gone through the ringer, and we've come out on the other side, and we're getting to the positive side of things now. And I guess this is the part of the program where we expose me a little bit too. Let's talk about how we change things around. Because we talk at times, and it's out there in the ether, so to speak, Nicole, we can call it $1 billion industry of people talking about how your beliefs change your reality, how it's your mindset. It's, stinking thinking will sink you every time, right?
Yes.
So how is it that the manifestation business is out there, yet we're all still stuck in the mire? How is it that even though I think I'm changing my thinking, I can't get any traction?
Oh, that is such a great question and so loaded. All right, so let's pick it apart a little bit. Because number one, your beliefs are so locked in subconsciously that you don't even know what those beliefs are. You think you know what is happening. You think you know what you want, and you really don't. And a lot of my clients say this to me, like, you brought me to depths that I didn't know existed. And I uncovered things I thought I knew what I wanted, but when I held your hand and let you lead me to these places, I realized I wanted something completely different. Another client put it in a way of, if you're mining for gold, you think you're mining for gold, and you have to build frameworks and to dig deeper and to go get that gold. And you might find a nugget and it's like, ooh, yay, excitement. And then you dig deeper and you find another gold nugget. Ooh, yay, you found that. And then you dig deeper and then you find diamonds. And it's like, oh, yeah, I'm keeping these. And you just start collecting all these gemstones all along the way. And you realize, I'm not just digging for gold. I'm digging for other things that are much more meaningful to me. And it's kind of like that. If you're set in a certain mindset subconsciously, it's hard to see outside of that until you do, right? It's almost like until you know something that, that thing that once you see, you cannot unsee. But if you've never seen it, you don't even know it's there.
Right. Right.
That's what happens. And when it comes to manifestation, that's the thing that's happening. It's experiential. There's certain things that you have to pull together, and there are certain things that come together. It's like pulling the purse strings. And at the same time, there's an experiential factor with that. So if you have not experienced something, you can't call it in. So people can learn about, hey, this is how you manifest. But if somebody doesn't teach you from an experiential point of view, you'll never get there. Then that's my biggest gripe is all this stuff out there with manifestation. People tell you all these things, just like the secret keeps the secret about the biggest secret in manifestation, because they are not bringing you through that experiential piece. And what I mean by that is this. Everybody out there, you may have experienced love. You may have experienced love at very different levels. You may have thought you were in love. So let's go in that direction where, when was a time that you thought you were so in love and then you realize, oh, that's not real love, because you experienced something else that might feel like more true love. And then maybe that doesn't even work out and you realize, like, oh my goodness, I've experienced this other thing that, wow, this is real love. Until you really experience pure love vibration, which a lot of near-death experiencers have, that because that is the vibration that is all, and that healing energy. So love is a healing energy, and you can bring that in at different levels. And some people can't love anybody outside themselves past the level that they can love themselves. So if you can't do that and you haven't experienced love at that pure divine level, I can't tell you, call that in. Oh, just call in that sense of love. Whatever your perception is of love is what you'll be calling in. And if it's not the right thing, you're not doing it. It's like baking a cake, right?
Yeah.
You can have all the ingredients and you need it in certain proportions, right? And even if you have your certain proportions, if you just throw everything in the bowl, eggshells and all, you're not going to have a good cake. You know, and you throw in the frosting in there too. You're not going to be making the cake. So you got to know the proportions. You got to know how to put it together. You got to know how to pull it together, and you got to know when to surrender. And that's a big thing. So there are certain things that are experiential. So in my process, that's what I help people do, is experience the things even for a moment. Because once you feel it, that's really it. That's all you have to do, is once you experience it once, now you can call it in, and now you can get there. So that's the biggest thing. And I'm so glad you asked that, because that's a big, I just want to scream on some things, because yeah, you can teach it all you want, but if you're not actually teaching all of the elements of it, forget it. It's not happening.
Because I've done some of those manifestation programs, and I'll be honest with you, they don't work. Because
not all of them do.
It's a lot of sitting in the dark and hoping that something happens, which feels like fishing.
Oh, and I'm being guided to say this too, because a lot of times they also tout, say your affirmations. Affirmations are good. So I'm not saying that affirmations are not good. I'm saying be careful with your affirmations, because affirmations, if you are using affirmations to try to change your mind on something, it's not going to work. You are only amplifying your negative beliefs, because an affirmation is only going to amplify a belief that you already have. So if you are saying, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough, and you really don't think that you're enough, you are only affirming that you're not enough.
Interesting.
So until you change the script that's in your head and in your body, you are only affirming that you are not enough by trying to convince yourself by saying, I am enough. Because your body's going, no, I'm not.
Let me ask you this, Nicole.
Yeah.
I truly am grateful for a lot. And I truly do wake up in the morning and I thank God for a lot. For our audience, I say, well, thank God, the universe, whatever it is you thank for whatever it is you think. But if you don't have a true attitude of gratitude and you want to thank the universe for something, but you're like, you know what, I thank me because I go out and I work for this. But you try to thank the universe for something. If there's insincerity in that gratitude, does that jeopardize you as well?
Yeah, forget it. So find whatever it is that you can be in gratitude of. So it may not be everything. It may not be life. It might be like, hey, I'm glad I woke up this morning. I am so grateful I woke up. I'm grateful that I can breathe clearer today, or whatever it is. It doesn't even matter how silly, stupid, small it might seem in the moment. If you can just be grateful for something, and try and find something that whatever is bothering you. So a lot of times it's finances, especially this time of year, right? Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. A little bit of money. Let's do some money magic, people. Okay. You might be in a position where, there's money going out the window. Something happens. Maybe you needed, I had a cracked windshield. 2 days later, a rock came up and cracked it again. Right? So I was like, what? I just had this stinking thing done. And I was like, oh, whatever. And I'm like, well, I'll just enjoy the spider web for now. But if you look at what it is and where your mind goes, because I could be like, I just had this freaking thing done. This is going to drive me nuts. Every time I look at it, I'm getting aggravated. If I'm using that as a trigger to get aggravated and gripe about it and that I got to go through this all over again, I look at it and I go, yeah, I'll just get it done when I feel like it. I'll just get it done when I have time. Too, because it's not important for me to get it done. I can see out my windshield, I'm good. So if you have something that you need to sink some money into and you're thinking, oh, I don't have money for this, that, or the other thing, look at something that you're able to pay for, right? So whatever bill that you're paying, instead of being like, all this money is going to this bill, blah, 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 blah. I used to get very angry when I had to pay bills. So I'm using this as an example because I know what it feels like.
You're hitting home right now. I got a thermostat that needs to be replaced in my vehicle. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we're intuitively hitting on the car stuff and money going out the window for like, quote unquote, like a waste or no reason, right?
Yep.
There is a reason, because that car gets you where you need to go. That car helps you make money. That car helps you. So look at that as if that car was your kid and it needed a new pair of shoes, would you do that? If that car, look at the thermostat, right? That car keeps you heated. While you're driving it to places. You want to be warm. Do you want to be freezing, or what is it that you need? If whatever it needs, provide it and tell yourself that this is self-care. This is me helping myself, and be in gratitude that you're able to do that. And give that gratitude, maybe if you want to put it that way, like to the car. If your car has a name, talk to her and tell her, hey, baby, I'm going to get you what you need. I'm taking care of you. You take care of me. Right. And just look at it that way, because everything is a relationship, and your relationship with money, your relationship with other people, your relationship with yourself, it is all the same. It's based on the same exact beliefs. So it just matters where it hurts most is where your trigger is. Because it is rippling effects in all of the areas. You just don't realize it because one hurts more than the other.
Yeah. Which
is why if you don't have enough time Tim. We're going to pick on Tim here right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a feeling we're getting around to this. Okay, go ahead. I'm ready for you to expose some wounds here. Go ahead.
This is somebody out there needs to hear this, because if you don't have enough time, which Tim, you mentioned in the quiz, that one of the things is, and I'm just using this as one of those examples, and it's great because so many people have this. There's not enough time to do things. Well, if there's not enough time, there's just not enough. There's something inside of you that says not enough. And that will ripple effect in, if it's time, that's one of the trigger pieces is, I'm always running late. I'm always this. There's never enough time. Why do you not have enough time? Why are you not taking the time for yourself? And if there's not enough time, guess what? There's not enough money. There's not enough love. There's not enough resources. There's just not enough of anything, because that's really it. It's not enough time. It's just not enough. Fill in the blank of what's next. So what that means is that there is a belief in there that says not enough. Why? So that's what I help people do, is peel back the layers, because everybody's not enough. You could put 10 people in front of me. You could put 50 people in front of me with a not enough belief inside of them, and every single one of them will have a very specific vibration of that. So that's what I hone in on, is what is your specific vibration, which means, there was like 107 different flavors of soft serve ice cream that's out there. Well, whatever flavor you're sitting there at, it's all the same ice cream, but just a different flavor of it. And it's the words that are being used that create the vibration. So somebody's not enough can be extremely different from the next person's not enough. And so that's why we can't blanket these not enough things, because it's very specific to you and your epigenetic lineage, as well as what you've committed to and own for yourself. Wow. So that's what sets me apart from a lot of other people that do the same thing and just kind of like, oh yeah, we're just going to kind of wave a magic wand and take away not enough. Well, it doesn't really work that way.
I want to talk about one other thing before we leave people today, speaking of not enough, and that is the topic of imposter syndrome. Ooh. Now, here's my problem with imposter syndrome, because I know some people who have thrown out imposter syndrome that very much do reflect the imposter part of imposter syndrome. To me, imposter syndrome is a crutch. I'll tell you why. And I come across strong with this, Nicole, because if you are authentic, and we've used the word authentic before, both before we started taping the show and talking about authenticity, if you're authentic in what you do, if you've done the work, if you've done the study, if you are authentic in your profession, if you're authentic in what it is you've done in your life, if you're authentic in your personality, imposter syndrome is not a thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You are who you are.
Yes.
You self-identify in all things. If you put yourself into your work, if you put yourself into your profession, if you put yourself into everything, there's no lack of identity. So therefore, to me, pardon my French, imposter syndrome is bullshit. Imposter syndrome just tells me you didn't do the work. Imposter syndrome tells me that you're faking it, literally, and you didn't make it. But you tell me how you come across with imposter syndrome and what your take on it is.
I love what you said, because imposter syndrome is bullshit. Okay, so if people do use it as a crutch, well, it's just imposter syndrome. Well, that's not actually acknowledging much and doing something about it. So what I've understood about imposter syndrome in the work that I do and the clients that I service and all of that is imposter syndrome is both bullshit and a real thing. But the real thing is based on bullshit because it's based on your limiting beliefs. So again, it's a subconscious programming that says or is related to I should say, typically abandonment and shame. So if I can talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, is if you look at how to identify, do you have some imposter syndrome in you? Are you over preparing? Are you the perfectionist? Are you the overachiever? Like, you have to work really hard to attain that success. You got to be the hardest worker. You know, you're doing all these things. It's like this puff up of, hey, look at me. Look at how much work I'm doing. Look at how hard I'm working, or look how perfect this is. Or are you rejecting any success due to your skills and saying it's luck? I was just lucky, because you're rejecting things that you deserve. So if you look at that, those are some of the things that indicate that you might have some imposter syndrome in there. Now, what are the behaviors that are associated with that? Doubting yourself, procrastination, fear of failure, which also can be, fear of success, self-deprecating talk and behaviors. You're not asking for help. You find it difficult to ask for help, or you never ask for help because you got to do it all yourself, right? You fear the success because you're afraid that you're not going to meet all the expectations that come with that success. And guess what? Those people are always comparing themselves to others. So where does it really come from? Some of the things that can contribute to that are controlling or overprotective parents when you were young, being forced to be that high achiever. So like that high importance is placed on that. Feeling that you don't belong, having that social anxiety, not feeling ready or skilled, not good enough. There's a lot of that not good enough in there. Abandonment is a huge thing because, if somebody wasn't there for you in a certain aspect, you feel like you have to make up for that because somehow you are bad. That's where the abandonment turns into shame. Let's see, what else is there? Is that the self-sabotaging loops? What do those look like? Like the beliefs that you have. Some beliefs are this: in order to be loved or accepted, I have to be perfect. So if everything is perfect, if I do things just right, then there's nothing that anybody can complain about, and they will love me, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to be judged so everything has to be perfect. So because of that, you procrastinate and you self-sabotage and you don't get things done because you're afraid to submit something that is less than perfect. Well, guess what? Everything is always less than perfect.
Yeah.
If you're not worthy of love because of who you are, that's an indication of this. That's a belief that supports that type of behavior. If you feel that you're not competent and you're not confident with the skill level that you have because you're not smart enough, and that everything has to be, it has to be luck in order for me to get there. That's bullshit. It's not luck. What is luck? Whatever. If asking for help is a sign of weakness in your eyes, well, bullshit. There we are again.
Yeah.
So it's just all of those things that you can easily overcome all of that by shifting your belief system. So yeah, you're right, Tim. It is bullshit, and you can step out of the bullshit and then spread that bullshit around to be manure to grow something new. And then it's not so much bullshit. It's a lesson, it's an opportunity, and it's a growth.
I like the way you put it, Nicole. That's brilliantly put. Brilliantly put.
Thank you.
Nicole Majik is available in a lot of different places. We've got links in the description of this program. I took her limiting beliefs quick quiz, which we also have a link in the description. We got to one or two different things that I scored horribly at. But I don't know. Do you want to, before we leave, do you want to tell people where I scored, where it's most common, where people tend to falter in this quiz?
Ooh, yeah. Let me take a look. So if you don't mind me saying.
Sure, go ahead.
leaking the evidence.
Yes, leak the evidence of my quick linker, my limiting beliefs quick quiz. Which, by the way, this isn't a shaming quiz by any means, but this basically tells Nicole where you need some help. Right?
Yeah. So the quiz will go over 14 different core beliefs, and you'll also get an email that comes to you that describes each one per day for 14 days. You'll get one that describes one of those limiting beliefs each day and unravels it for you and helps you to understand it a little bit better. So, if you answer yes to certain ones, then you'll understand it a little better. Pay attention to those emails that you get. So things like not having enough time to get everything done. Mm-hmm. Well, that goes back to that not enough. So it kind of breaks it down for you with that. Another one of yours, Tim, was past failures influencing negatively the future. Mm-hmm. So there's particular things in there where we get locked in, where if we feel like we failed in the past, we tend to carry that into the future because why? We're making decisions based on those past experiences and then just replaying them out because no matter how much we try to avoid them, because it's a belief, we make it happen. Not enough resources kind of stuff, that others are responsible for your current life circumstances in certain ways. And those come from so many different types of things. Fail to give yourself the love, compassion, and understanding that you give to others. That is a huge one. And that results in a lot of people pleasing, which can, propagate into that imposter syndrome. If you're always people pleasing, if you always have to be perfect, if you always have to do everything for everybody else first, and you're not, doing that. So where are the things that are propagating those imposter syndrome type behaviors, whether you label yourself as that or not? It's not, because it is BS. So it's not a crutch to say, oh, I just have imposter syndrome. That's not it. It's more of where do you emanate certain behaviors or thoughts or feelings that is labeled as imposter syndrome, and then how do you shift out of that? So these are easy things to shift out of if you know how to do it. Do you have to do everything yourself? You have to have that super independence.
Yeah.
And that can stem from a feeling of abandonment. And a lot of clients say, well, I wasn't abandoned as a child. No, we weren't abandoned as children all of the time. Yeah, sometimes some people were very traumatically abandoned, physically and or emotionally. But we also have abandonment show up in ways in which if we have a substance abuser parent, they're not there like mentally or emotionally. If you assign a meaning to something, it can turn into abandonment. And it could be as simple as mom or dad has clients on the phone and they talk on the phone a lot. And you have something really important that you want to say as that 3-year-olds watching a cartoon, and there's something really exciting on that cartoon that you want to tell mom or dad right then and there. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there like getting shooed away because this is a very important call. And, this means the mortgage payment possibly, right? Yeah. So you get shooed away, and that might happen a couple times. And then all of a sudden, I'm not good enough to be heard. Mm-hmm. I'm not seen. I'm not heard. I'm not valued. I'm not enough. Yeah. And that's abandonment.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, especially to someone that young. They don't understand.
Yeah, they don't. And we might understand later. And that's why we have to do that inner child work, because we can forgive as the adult, but we forget to go back and change the mindset of the child.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, those links are in the description of the program, and I guess you've heard my peccadillos there. Go take that quiz, that limiting beliefs quick quiz, which is in the description of the program. We've also got links to Nicole's social media, and we've got a website link as well, so you can check out Nicole's website. And by all means, take the quiz, check out what Nicole has to offer. It's awesome. It's all good stuff, Nicole, all good stuff. So we appreciate you being on the program today. Want to include Nicole here on the ending message for today. It's the end of our week here. We appreciate you being with us this week here on Darkness Radio. Going to put out a prayer and healing request. The reason we're including Nicole this week is because we got a couple of different people for prayer and healing requests. Angela in Canada reached out to me this past week. Her mother, Janice, was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I want to put out a prayer and healing request for Angela in I believe it's Saskatchewan, Canada. Keep her in your prayers, folks, as she's struggling to kind of wrap her head and heart around her mother, in dealing with that eventual transition. So her mother, Janice, right now is dealing with that terminal cancer. So if you could, keep both Janice and Angela in your prayers this week, your thoughts and prayers, and send that energy out to both Janice and Angela.
Cool. Thank you for including me in that, Tim. I'm just going to create a ball of energy so that, Angela can call it in for herself and her mom, Janice, that there's one for each of them, that they can, I'll have that prepared in the matter of minutes for them by the time they hear this. And they can just call that in and have some healing energy from me to them.
Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that very, very much. Very, very much. I'm going to be selfish here. Over Thanksgiving, my dad said that his cancer was back, just little spots. He has a little spot on his breastbone, a little spot on his ilium or hip. He is on some experimental medication from his doctor, some hormone treatment. Says he's feeling better as he's gotten that, even in the last 5 days that he got the treatment, but a little bit of a scary time for him. So if you could put out a little bit of a prayer healing energy for Roy Dennis, I appreciate it. It'd be a great favor to me, so I'd appreciate that as well. So every once in a while, with Papa Bruiser out in Arizona, we ask for prayer and healing as he has COPD for my dad, Roy Dennis, here in White Bear Lake. We appreciate that as well. So we get a little selfish every once in a while. So
nothing wrong with that. We can add that to the mix for sure.
Thank you so much. So those are the prayer and healing requests this week. By the way, folks, I believe Microdose Gummies is back on the program as of the beginning of the year. Be sure to visit microdose.com and use the code DARKNESS, I believe. It's if you buy two... I believe it's if you buy two. I'm trying to remember, if it's 2 containers, you get the third one for 50% off. You'll see the deal when you add it to the cart. Use the code DARKNESS, and you'll get your 50% off discount there. Or it's one for one or the other. Be sure to visit microdose.com to get that discount. And also a reminder: we're into the winter season now. We're a little less than a month away now from the Christmas season, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. Want to remind people, even though we're in the holiday season, doesn't mean we stop giving. It doesn't mean we stop being kind to our neighbors. Doesn't mean that we stop being kind to each other. People are out there that need warm coats, warm mittens, warm hats, blankets, whatever it is. There's toys out there that need to be given for Toys for Tots, other organizations. Please be a light in the darkness for someone this weekend. If you can manage to get out there and do something for someone this weekend, it doesn't take much money, even if it's $5. Go out and put some money in a kettle for someone somewhere. Do something this weekend for someone special or for anyone out there that may be in need. If you can be a light in the darkness for someone out there, we'd greatly appreciate it. Just a little bit of something from us here at Darkness Radio to you. And one final reminder, this weekend, Saturday in Shoreview, I'll be at the Enchanted Expo with a Twist, Winter Wonderland. It is a supernatural metaphysical expo in Shoreview, Minnesota, Shoreview Community Center, Shoreview, Minnesota. It starts at 10 a.m. on December 2nd. That Saturday goes till 5 p.m. I'll be speaking at 10:30, I believe. I'll be doing an EVP talk. It's a holistic metaphysical holiday event. There's 40 plus vendors, healers, readers, and paranormal vendors. Myself and Jessica Freeberg from the program here will be out there. Jessica will be out there with her writing partner, Natalie Fowler. Also, Cherie Meyer will be out there, psychic medium, Reiki master, and she'll be doing a gallery reading for $25. You can check her out. Randy Hoyt from Randy Hoyt Galleries will be out there. She's an intuitive artist. She'll be out there as well. You can go to darknessradioshow.com, click on the events tab, and you can get more information, including the speaking schedule for Saturday. So be sure to do that as well. Nicole, I want to thank you again so much for being with us today.
Tim, the pleasure was mine. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much. And folks, we'll see you next week for another great week of the best in paranormal podcasting. This has been Darkness Radio.